I never thought a single question could make my blood run cold. Yet here I was, trembling, as he leaned closer, his voice a low rumble that made my heart stutter. "Who told you my secret?" The words weren't loud, but they carried a gravity that pressed down on my chest like a lead weight. My lungs felt constricted, as if the very air had thickened, making it impossible to breathe. My heart hammered violently, each beat echoing in my ears, and for a fleeting second, the world seemed to narrow down to just the two of us, the man who had always felt larger than life, and me, a girl who thought she understood the limits of fear until now. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say something clever, or calming, or defiant. But my throat had gone dry. My mind raced, flitting through every scenario, every possible explanation, but none of them felt right. None of them felt safe. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to throw myself into the shadows and disappear, to escape the suffocating weight of his presence. My legs betrayed me, frozen as though they were glued to the damp pavement. He didn't move. Not a muscle. Not a single step forward, yet the air between us vibrated with unspoken authority. There was a calmness to him that made the tension unbearable, like a storm brewing in silence, threatening to break over everything at any moment. He had a way of existing that demanded attention, that drew focus whether I wanted it or not. I could feel the danger in him in a physical, almost tangible way, like static crawling along my skin. I swallowed hard. I don't know what you mean, I stammered, though even I could hear the weakness in my voice. My fingers twitched against my thighs, wanting to grip something, anything, for reassurance. The rain had just started to fall, tiny droplets clinging to the edges of my hair and jacket, but I didn't notice. I couldn't. Everything in the world had contracted to this single moment, this single question that carried the weight of consequences I couldn't even imagine. His eyes, dark and unreadable, narrowed slightly. They pinned me in place, and I felt exposed, every thought, every fear, every secret laid bare in that gaze. "Don't lie to me," he said quietly, but the menace underneath it was unmistakable. Even a whisper from him carried the force of a command. I bit my lip, torn between denying everything and admitting something I wasn't ready to confront. My mind went back to earlier that day, the mundane safety of the bakery where I worked, the predictable rhythm of a life I thought I could manage. I could see the flour-dusted counters, the warm smell of fresh bread still clinging to my clothes, the gentle hum of the refrigerators, the small bells above the door that jingled whenever someone entered. That world felt safe. Ordinary. Predictable. And yet, here I was, standing under a streetlight, rain beginning to slit my hair to my forehead, facing a man who existed entirely outside the bounds of ordinary. He was a storm, quiet yet lethal, contained yet impossible to ignore. He moved through the world with a deliberate, measured authority that seemed effortless. And it terrified me because it made me aware of how small, how fragile I felt in comparison. I wanted to step back, but the puddle of water at my feet reflected the flickering streetlight in distorted patterns, making me dizzy. I glanced down, imagining slipping, falling, and that tiny moment of physical imbalance mirrored the emotional imbalance that threatened to pull me under. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, nails biting into my palms, a feeble attempt to ground myself. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked softly, almost conversational, but I could feel the edge beneath his words, the subtle blade hidden in silk. I tried to answer, tried to articulate the mixture of fear and fascination that churned in my stomach, but my voice failed me. I didn't mean anything," I finally squeaked, and immediately regretted it. It sounded weak, pitiful. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "You expect me to believe that?" His gaze was patient but unrelenting, the kind of look that strips away pretenses and forces honesty. I could feel it probing, sifting through the layers I had carefully built around myself. I realized, with a sinking sort of dread, that he didn't just see me, he understood me in ways I didn't want anyone to. I swallowed again. The words I wanted to say, the truths I wanted to hide, tangled in my throat. I had always thought I was careful, invisible in my own quiet way. Working at the small bakery, I was just a face among many, someone people nodded to and smiled at without really noticing. But with him, I was raw, open, vulnerable, and I hated how much I hated it. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected, trying to reclaim some sense of control. "You don't belong here." He chuckled softly, low and almost musical, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I belong wherever I want," he said. "Even here." A shiver ran down my spine. There was something almost magnetic about the way he said that, as if daring me to deny it, daring me to challenge him. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I didn't. Part of me wanted to, desperately. The rational part of me, the part that had spent years carefully plotting the borders of my ordinary life, screamed that I should run. That I should escape this encounter before it consumed me. But another part, a part one barely recognized, wanted to stay. I noticed, almost against my will, the subtle details of him, the way the light caught the faint scar along his jawline, the tremor in his hand that he didn't know I could see, the faint scent of leather and rain clinging to him. He was dangerous, yes, but he was also human, painfully human, and that contradiction made him even more impossible to read. I stepped back instinctively, water sloshing around my shoes. "I don't know anything," I said, though I knew it sounded hollow. His gaze followed me, unyielding. "Do you think I don't know when someone's lying to me?" he asked. His tone was calm, patient, yet threaded with a quiet threat that made my stomach twist. "I'm not lying," I protested, more loudly than I intended, the fear rising in my chest, making me gasp for breath. My pulse thundered painfully in my ears. "I swear, I don't know anything." He didn't respond immediately. He just stepped closer, the wet asphalt reflecting his silhouette in fractured light, making him seem even larger than he was. I wanted to run, I wanted to vanish, I wanted to disappear into the folds of the city, but my legs refused to move. I realized with a strange mixture of terror and fascination that I didn't want to move. The silence stretched. Rain started to fall harder, drumming softly against the pavement, against the tip of my nose, making a gentle, persistent rhythm. It felt unreal, cinematic even, like the world had slowed to focus on this one moment, on this one confrontation. I could hear the distant hum of traffic, the faint barking of a dog in an alley, but they felt insignificant compared to the weight of him standing in front of me. "You could have walked away," he said finally, voice low, almost intimate, and I felt my pulse spike again. "But you didn't." "Why?" I swallowed hard. My mind raced, trying to find an answer that wouldn't make me seem weak or foolish. I don't know," I admitted, and it was the truth. I didn't know why I had stayed. Something about him, something raw, dangerous, magnetic, held me in place. "You're scared," he said softly, almost a whisper, leaning just enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "And yet, you're still here." I hated how much that made me feel exposed. "Of course I'm scared," I said, almost bitterly. "Wouldn't you be if you were standing here, facing whatever this is?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied me, eyes dark, unreadable. There was a tension in the air that I could feel in my bones, an electricity that made my skin prickle. "Do you really think fear is your enemy?" he asked finally, voice low, almost challenging. I blinked, unsure how to respond. I don't know," I whispered, my voice trembling despite my efforts to steady it. "I just know it's overwhelming." His lips twitched, almost the hint of a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Good," he said simply. "Then you're alive." I felt my chest tighten. Alive? I didn't feel alive. I felt exposed. Vulnerable. Naked in ways I had never allowed myself to feel before. And yet, part of me, an unreasoning, irrational part, wanted more. I glanced down at my hands, noticing for the first time how they shook visibly, how my nails bit into my palms. I shouldn't be here," I murmured, trying to convince myself as much as him. "I have a life, ordinary, safe." He took a slow, deliberate step closer, and I could feel the heat from his body even through my jacket. Safe, he repeated, voice incredulous, almost amused. Safe is a word for people who don't know what it means to live. Safe is boring. Safe doesn't make your heart pound like this, does it? I opened my mouth to respond but found no words. I didn't want to admit he was right. I didn't want to admit that my pulse was racing, that my breath caught every time he moved, that my thoughts had spiraled into dangerous territories I had never dared explore. And yet, I couldn't deny it. Not anymore. It started with small things, the way he appeared without warning, almost like he materialized out of the air, a shadow slipping silently between the city lights and the puddles on the wet streets. There was no fanfare, no announcement. 1 second the cafe was just quiet and ordinary, the scent of fresh bread and warm coffee drifting lazily through the air, the soft hum of the old refrigerator in the corner blending into the background. And the next, he was there, leaning casually against the doorway, coat slick from the rain, a shadow of danger in the tilt of his jaw, the curve of his mouth, the calm, almost casual way he scanned the small cafe like he owned every inch of it. The city itself seemed to shift around him, as though the lamplight bent toward him, as if the very air paid homage to his presence. There was something in the way the wind whipped across the street, tugging at my hair and fluttering the napkins on the counter, that felt like it was conspiring with him, drawing attention, forcing me to notice, forcing my pulse to race in ways I couldn't control. And yet, no one else seemed to see it. The other patrons were busy with their orders, their faces absorbed in the mundane rhythm of life, oblivious to the tension coiling around the small space like a predator waiting to strike. The first time I saw him properly, I panicked in the most ordinary, human way possible. I dropped a tray of pastries at the counter, the croissants scattering like tiny golden bullets across the linoleum floor. My face burned so hot that I was certain anyone looking could see my shame glowing under my skin. I am so sorry. I stammered, my voice trembling, hands fumbling as I tried to scoop up the fallen pastries before anyone noticed the mistake. The tips of my fingers shook, and one croissant slipped through my fingers, landing with a soft thud by the base of the counter. He crouched beside me without a word of reprimand, not a flicker of anger crossing his sharp features. His presence alone, that quiet, controlled dominance, made my heartbeat spike and my hands freeze mid-motion. "Careful," he murmured, low and intimate, the words brushing against my ear in a way that made my stomach knot. His voice was soft but edged with something dangerous, something that carried a weight far heavier than the gentle tone suggested. "You could hurt someone important." Important. That word lodged in my chest like a dart tipped with ice. It wasn't just a warning, it wasn't just a tease, it was a claim, a declaration, a subtle invasion of my carefully constructed emotional boundaries. Important. I didn't understand why that word made something ache inside me, why the thought of him considering someone, or perhaps myself, so valuable made the pulse in my veins twist. Longing I didn't understand unfurled in my chest, curling like smoke that I couldn't dispel. From that day, everything changed, though not in ways I could have anticipated. The air felt different, even when he wasn't there. I couldn't stop noticing him. He had a way of existing that made the mundane, pouring coffee, handing over a bag of pastries, ringing up a customer, feel charged, alive, dangerous. The subtle brush of his sleeve as he collected his coffee made my fingers tingle long after he'd left the counter. The way he lingered near the display case, eyes glinting sharp and calculating as if seeing through every lie, every half-truth, every carefully constructed mask I wore, it left me unsettled, exposed, yet inexplicably drawn in. And then there was her. Elena. The girl everyone assumed was untouchable. Confident. Beautiful. Sharp as a knife, the kind of woman who made it obvious she knew her value and expected the world to adjust accordingly. She had him too, or at least she seemed to, at least on the surface. They moved around each other with a casual intimacy that made my chest clench violently, jealousy slicing through me sharper than I anticipated, leaving jagged edges in my thoughts. She leaned too close when she laughed, her hand brushing his shoulder in ways that should have felt innocent but didn't. She spoke in low tones, words exchanged in whispers that made my imagination spiral into dangerous, unbidden territory. I hated her. I hated how much I hated her, how every interaction, every laugh, every glance that lingered between them cut me down, made me smaller, made me ache with a longing I could barely admit to myself. And yet, that hatred was tinged with a perverse fascination, a grudging acknowledgement that she had qualities I lacked: confidence, boldness, control, and it frustrated me, made my stomach twist with a helpless ache. But more than that, more sharply than the jealousy, more unbearably than the frustration, I hated how much I wanted him. Every heartbeat, every involuntary shiver, every stolen glance I caught myself taking made me feel complicit in something dangerous. I wanted him to notice me, to linger just a second too long in my presence, to brush against my hand with the slightest excuse. The rational part of my mind screamed at me to stop, to distance myself, to retreat into the safety of routine, of the ordinary. But my body refused to comply. It leaned in, it sought him, it responded to the magnetism he radiated in a way I couldn't resist. I noticed the little things first, the way his coat brushed the edge of the counter when he reached for his cup, the faint scent of leather and something warm and dangerous lingering in the air after him, the tilt of his head as he surveyed the small room with that calm authority that made every other movement seem chaotic and irrelevant by comparison. I found myself imagining what it would be like to touch him, to feel the heat of his hand against mine, to hear his voice close and soft, a whisper in my ear that wasn't meant for anyone else. My stomach churned at the thought, and my pulse surged like water trapped behind a dam. Then came the stolen glances. Little moments when our eyes met across the room and I couldn't look away. I would catch him watching, just for a heartbeat, and it would be enough to make the air thicken, to make my chest constrict, to make my hands itch with the urge to reach, to hold, to connect. Every time, I would force myself to look away, telling myself it was dangerous, that it was foolish, that it would only end badly. And every time, part of me wanted to linger, wanted to watch him too, wanted to exist in that electric, unspoken connection even if it terrified me. Elena was always there, a reminder of boundaries I couldn't define. She had her way with him, her confidence, the small teasing gestures, the knowing smirks that suggested a closeness I could never claim. I would catch myself imagining conversations, imagining confrontations that would never happen. My thoughts became a constant tug-of-war, between logic and desire, between caution and reckless attraction, between hating her and resenting myself for wanting him more than I wanted to hate her. I hated how my mind betrayed me. I hated how every interaction left me raw, my nerves buzzing with tension I couldn't explain, with longing I could barely articulate. I hated the way my stomach flipped when he laughed softly at something, the way my chest tightened when I imagined his hand brushing against hers instead of mine. I hated the ache of wanting him to notice me in ways he seemed oblivious to, as though my existence was just another minor detail in a world that belonged to him and to Elena, a world I didn't belong in but couldn't tear myself away from. And yet, I stayed. I watched. I lingered. I let the small moments, the brush of his sleeve, the lingering gaze, the way he seemed to carry a world of danger in his calm movements, draw me in. I hated myself for it, cursed myself for the longing that wrapped itself around my heart and refused to let go. I hated that I wanted him, that I imagined what it would feel like to be close, to be the one who mattered to him, to feel his dangerous calm turn into something soft, something real, something that belonged to me. Even the simplest things, the tilt of his chin when he considered my words, the slight arch of his brow when he was curious, the way he spoke in measured tones that somehow made the mundane feel charged, all of it gnawed at me, demanded attention, made me ache with feelings I wasn't ready to confront. The city itself became a backdrop to my obsession, the way the rain slid across the windows, the way the streetlights flickered when he passed by, the way the scent of coffee and pastries mingled with the faint trace of his cologne still clinging in the air. I caught myself holding my breath whenever he moved nearby, pretending to be busy while my thoughts spiraled into impossible territories. My hands would tremble slightly, and I would chastise myself for being so foolish, for letting a man I barely knew hold such power over my emotions. Yet, the pull was undeniable, magnetic, relentless. I wanted him in ways I wasn't ready to admit, ways that made my chest tighten and my stomach lurch with anticipation and fear. Even Elena, with her effortless confidence and teasing ways, could not diminish the intensity of the storm he carried with him. She was a constant, a reminder that I wasn't the only one who noticed him, but she also highlighted the stark contrast between her assured presence and my trembling uncertainty. I hated her for it, and yet I understood her in a way that made the jealousy sharper, because she had everything I wanted: control, confidence, and his attention. And through it all, I realized a terrifying truth: I hated her. I hated how much I hated her. But even more terrifying was that I hated myself for the intensity of the desire I felt, for the way every fiber of my being longed for him, for the dangerous, magnetic man who had entered my ordinary world and turned it upside down. I hated it. And yet, I couldn't stop it. I didn't want to. It started quietly, almost imperceptibly. The first spark wasn't some dramatic, cinematic event. It was subtle, understated, the kind of moment that feels ordinary until you realize it has already changed everything. That night, the bakery was nearly empty. The city outside lay under a blanket of fog, streetlights diffusing weakly through the mist, painting the streets in pale gold and gray. The hum of the refrigerators was the only soundtrack, a constant, mechanical reminder that life moved on even when the world felt frozen. I was stacking trays, careful not to make a sound, my fingers slick from washing up flour and sugar earlier. The routine, the normalcy, should have comforted me. But then he appeared. Rain dripped from his coat in uneven patterns, each droplet sounding louder than it should in the hushed space. He didn't rush in, didn't announce himself. He just appeared, as if he had stepped out of the fog itself, his presence folding into the room so naturally that for a second I thought I was imagining him. "You're here late," he said, his voice smooth but precise, slicing through the low hum of the fridge fans, cutting the quiet like a knife. I close early," I said, fumbling with the tray, fingers slipping slightly on the metal edge. "Just finishing up." My voice sounded strange even to me, too high, too unsure, betraying the nervous flutter in my chest that I couldn't explain. He smiled. Not a real smile, not warm, not comforting, the kind that reaches the eyes and softens everything it touches. No, his smile was controlled, measured, the kind that suggested amusement laced with danger. "You like being alone," he said, and I froze, because in those words was an understanding of me I hadn't intended to reveal. "I guess," I whispered, unsure why I was admitting it. The words felt like a confession, and for reasons I didn't yet understand, I couldn't take them back. "Careful," he said, stepping closer. I smelled the rain clinging to his coat, but there was something else, something unplaceable, something dangerous that made my stomach twist. My pulse raced, and I felt every nerve ending alert, sharp as glass. Being alone makes you vulnerable. Vulnerable. The word wrapped around me, clinging, seeping into my skin, making my chest tighten and my hands tremble. I should have recoiled. I should have pushed him away. Every rational instinct I had screamed at me to step back, to preserve what little composure I had left, to protect the quiet, predictable life I had built in the small, safe bakery. But my body betrayed me. I leaned closer without thinking. My fingers brushed his in a movement so small, so inconsequential, yet the impact was immediate. Electricity shot through me, sharp and insistent, making my knees weak and my chest pound in a rhythm I couldn't control. The world outside the bakery, the fog, the empty streets, the indifferent city, dropped away. There was only him, the heat from his body, the dangerous scent that clung to him, and the undeniable pull that made me ache to close the gap entirely. That small spark should have been fleeting, just a moment to pass and be forgotten. But it wasn't. It lingered, twisting in my chest, demanding attention, insisting that nothing could go back to the way it had been. Every subsequent glance, every shared space, every brush of hands, carried the memory of that first spark, a reminder that boundaries were fragile, and desire could ignite in the quietest, most ordinary moments. And then Elena appeared. She didn't just complicate things, she magnified them, turned them inside out, and made them impossible to ignore. She wasn't merely a rival, she was a challenge wrapped in confidence and charm, a puzzle I couldn't solve and didn't want to, though the jealousy clawed at me relentlessly. Her presence made the spark that had already ignited between him and me flare unpredictably, a wildfire I could neither control nor contain. She smiled at him with that lazy, confident charm, the kind of smile that made the world tilt just slightly, the kind that seemed effortless and yet carried a quiet, potent power. And I wanted to scream. Every time she laughed, every casual glance, every deliberate gesture toward him felt like a knife twisting in my chest, and yet I couldn't look away. My body reacted before my mind could process it, each pulse of jealousy a painful reminder of the desire I couldn't suppress. "You're staring again," she said one day, bold and unnervingly aware. Her eyes met mine with precision, catching the heat that betrayed my feelings, making my stomach flip, and forcing my fingers to clench at my sides. "I'm not," I stammered, voice brittle, high-pitched, entirely inadequate. I felt small, exposed, caught in a moment where pretense failed me completely. My mind raced for an excuse, a plausible lie, but nothing was sufficient. I could only stand there, trembling slightly, every nerve alert, every instinct screaming at me to deny, retreat, run, hide, but my feet were rooted, betraying me. "Sure," she said, smirking. That smirk, it was more than a gesture, it was a weapon, perfectly calibrated to pierce, to provoke, to unsettle. And God, that smirk made my blood boil. My chest ached. My hands shook. I hated it. I hated her for it. I hated myself for reacting to it. And yet, beneath all of that, the tension between desire and jealousy, between longing and frustration, between fear and curiosity, intensified, binding me in a way that felt inescapable. Each day, each encounter became a battlefield of small, silent wars. I hated how the ordinary moments, stacking trays, wiping counters, arranging pastries, suddenly felt like stages for these unspoken competitions of attention and dominance. My heart betrayed me, beating harder at the sight of him leaning casually against the counter, at the faint brush of his sleeve, at the subtle tilt of his chin, as if he could read every hidden corner of my mind. And all the while, Elena existed as both adversary and mirror, her confidence exposing my own insecurities, her laughter and gestures amplifying the longing and jealousy that twisted in my chest like a living thing. I replayed moments endlessly in my mind, the way he had said being alone makes you vulnerable, the brush of our fingers, the dangerous calm in his voice. Every replay heightened the ache, the tension, the combustible cocktail of desire and fear. And then Elena would appear, smiling, teasing, effortlessly claiming the space I secretly craved, reminding me that I was both an observer and a competitor in a game I hadn't even agreed to play. The bakery, once a sanctuary of routine and predictability, became a landscape of tension. The smell of bread, the warmth of the ovens, the soft hum of machinery, they were all tainted with anticipation. Every little sound, the scrape of a tray, the bell over the door, the drip of rain from the sidewalk outside, suddenly carried significance. Each was a possible herald of his arrival, a reminder that the delicate equilibrium of my life could be disrupted at any moment by a glance, a word, a movement. My hands would tremble as I worked. My pulse would spike at a glance. Every time their eyes met across a room, I felt exposed, vulnerable, alive in ways that terrified me. And yet, even in that fear, in that raw, aching vulnerability, there was an undeniable pull, a force that drew me toward him and made the presence of Elena all the more unbearable. I hated the ache in my chest. I hated the way my hands shook. I hated the way my heart betrayed me with every glance, every brush of fingers, every inadvertent moment of closeness. I hated the jealousy, the longing, the heat, the vulnerability. And yet, I couldn't stop. Every encounter left me raw, exposed, and craving more, a paradox I couldn't untangle. I tried to tell myself to focus on the ordinary, to immerse myself in the routine I had built, to treat him and Elena as distant variables in a world I understood. But it was impossible. Each small interaction, his gaze, the way she smiled at him, the faint brush of fingers, the unspoken tension, made my entire body aware in ways I had never imagined possible. My chest ached, my pulse raced, my thoughts became a relentless loop of longing, jealousy, and desire. Every day, the tension escalated. Every smile, every glance, every small, mundane gesture became loaded with meaning, interpreted through the lens of my own obsession and fear. The spark that had ignited in the quiet of a late night at the bakery became a slow burn that consumed my focus, my energy, my imagination. And all the while, Elena loomed as both rival and mirror, highlighting the distance between desire and reality, the impossibility of boundaries in a world suddenly defined by magnetic attraction, subtle threats, and the dangerous allure of someone who shouldn't exist in my ordinary life. I hated her. I hated myself. I hated the ache. I hated the longing. I hated how every glance, every touch, every word seemed to bend the world around us, making the ordinary bakery a crucible of tension, desire, and rivalry. And above all, above every emotion, I hated how much I wanted him. The tension kept building in ways I hadn't imagined possible. Every day felt like walking a tightrope stretched over a chasm I couldn't see the bottom of. I wanted him. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to walk away before the pull became too strong, before the desire took over, before my thoughts betrayed me entirely. But I couldn't do any of it. Every instinct screamed at me to retreat, to protect myself, to preserve the fragile sense of order in my ordinary life, yet my body refused. It leaned in, it sought him out, it craved even the smallest moments that tethered me to him. I found myself lingering in places he might be, the mundane spaces of the city, the corner coffee shop before dawn, the empty street near the bakery, the dimly lit alley where the fog clung thick to the asphalt, becoming stages where I silently hoped for a glimpse, a shadow, a brush of his presence. I caught glimpses of him in the corner of my eye, sometimes from a distance, sometimes impossibly close, and each time my pulse would spike in a way that made my stomach lurch. I imagined what it would be like to touch him, just once, to feel the warmth of his hand, the strength in his fingers, the electricity that seemed to course between us every time our skin brushed, however fleetingly. I imagined hearing him say my name softly, dangerously, low and intimate, as if it belonged to me alone, as if the world outside us ceased to exist. The first real test came when I least expected it. I had stayed late in the bakery, wiping down counters, rearranging pastries, trying to focus on tasks so small and repetitive that they could keep my mind from spiraling. The city outside was quiet, save for the occasional hum of a passing car or the distant bark of a dog. I was locking the back door when I heard it, the low growl of an engine behind me, slicing through the silence like a warning. Elena stepped out of the shadows with perfect poise, her silhouette sharp against the dim glow of the street lamp. Every inch of her exuded confidence and control. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement in a rhythm that echoed through the night, deliberate and unsettling. "He's mine," she said, calm, cutting, the words coated with ownership and danger. "You don't belong in his world." I opened my mouth to protest, to insist that I wasn't trying to intrude, that I hadn't meant anything by lingering in spaces that felt charged with his presence. "I'm not trying to," I began, but she interrupted me with a laugh that was all teeth and ice, sharp and slicing. "You're pathetic," she said. "And he knows it. That's why you're fun to watch." Her words landed like stones thrown into my chest, heavy, unrelenting, leaving me gasping for breath. I wanted to strike her, to scream, to shove every ounce of fear and longing down her throat. But my hands shook uncontrollably. All I could do was watch her walk away, her heels clicking against the wet pavement, each step a dagger twisting in my chest, leaving me trembling and exposed in the cold night air. And then he appeared. Out of nowhere. Rain slicked his hair, his coat clinging to his broad frame. The city's fog seemed to part for him, the light catching in his eyes, blazing with intensity. His presence alone made the world tilt, the ordinary night turning into something charged, dangerous, and electric. "You all right?" His voice was softer than I expected, almost gentle, but I could feel the tension behind it, the unspoken warning coiled in every syllable. I'm fine," I lied, my voice small, brittle. My hands were still trembling, betraying the storm of emotions that surged through me, fear, longing, frustration, and a deep ache I couldn't name. I wanted to reach for him, to cling to the one person who could make the chaos in my chest feel justified, tangible, real, and yet the fear of stepping too close held me back. He moved closer, deliberate, careful, a predator and protector wrapped in one. His hand reached for mine, brushing fingers so lightly against mine that the touch should have been negligible. But it wasn't. Electricity shot through me, sharp and sudden, leaving me momentarily unmoored. My knees nearly gave way. My chest thumped violently, and my thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. "I should leave," I whispered, voice barely audible, fragile against the soft hum of the night, against the rain that tapped gently against the nearby asphalt. My words carried a vulnerability I couldn't hide, a fear I couldn't suppress. "No," he said. Just that single word, low, commanding, threaded with a dangerous intimacy, tied me to him in a way I could not break, a tether stronger than any rational instinct. It anchored me, forcing my trembling heart to acknowledge a truth I had been running from. I wanted him, in every impossible, irrational, terrifying way. We started seeing each other in stolen moments, tiny fragments of time carved from the ordinary, mundane world. Coffee runs before dawn, when the city was still heavy with fog and silence. Brief encounters in shadowed alleys, where the mist curled around our bodies and the world outside ceased to exist. His voice, low and intimate, would brush against my ear, whispering things like, "You don't know what you're getting into," in a tone that was both warning and seduction, a mixture I couldn't resist. Each stolen moment left me shaken, trembling, craving more, and yet terrified of the consequences that inevitably followed. I didn't care. Not about the danger, not about the uncertainty, not about Elena or the world he belonged to. All that mattered was the pull between us, the raw, undeniable tension that left me both exhilarated and terrified. Then came the twist, the one that shattered everything I thought I understood about him, about us, about the fragile illusion I had been clinging to. Late one night, I had returned to the bakery, ostensibly to check on supplies, but in reality, I was chasing the restless energy that his presence had left in me. And I overheard him. Through the thin walls, the muffled hum of the refrigerators, a voice I recognized immediately, low and precise. Someone was on the line, whispering my name. Someone was revealing a secret I wasn't supposed to hear, a secret that had been hidden, protected, and carefully contained. I froze behind the door, my heart lodged in my throat, every nerve ending on high alert. My hands pressed to my mouth to stifle a sound I feared would betray me, my stomach twisting in knots that threatened to pull me down into panic. I strained to hear, catching every syllable that should have remained private. "You need to make sure she never finds out about this," he said. His voice was calm, almost detached, but there was an unmistakable edge of tension, a quiet gravity that made my pulse pound painfully. "If she does, it ruins everything." My stomach dropped, heavy and leaden. I wanted to scream, to confront him, to throw myself into the chaos of revelation. But I couldn't move. Betrayal, fear, love, they all collided in me at once, forming a knot of emotion that left me rooted to the spot, breathless and paralyzed. The next morning, he found me by the pier, rain slicking my hair, mist curling around the water, chill biting through my coat. He saw me immediately, the way he always did, with those eyes that seemed to strip away pretense, see through every layer, every lie, every heartbeat. "You heard," he said, voice tight, shadows of regret flickering through his expression. "I did," I whispered, words trembling, fragile. "Why didn't you trust me?" "I was trying to protect you," he admitted, each word weighted with tension, heavy with unspoken truths. From me, from them, his hand hovered near mine, hesitant, a question in motion. "From everything I am." I wanted to shake him, to yell, to demand honesty, to demand a reckoning. I wanted to throw myself into him and never let go, to erase the fear and betrayal with proximity and touch. But fear lingered, thick and suffocating, pressing against my chest, chaining my limbs, clouding my ability to act. My hands shook, my pulse raced, and my mind teetered on the edge of panic and desire, love and despair. I could feel the tension spiraling between us, palpable and electric, the kind that made my fingers ache, my chest burn, my stomach twist in unpredictable ways. The fog on the pier seemed to curl around us, dense and suffocating, making the moment intimate, impossible, and infinitely dangerous. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, a reminder that the world outside this fragile bubble of tension existed, and it was unforgiving, relentless, unyielding. The air was heavy with unspoken words, each of them weighted with history, desire, betrayal, and fear. I wanted to speak, to demand explanations, to tear down the walls of secrecy he had built, but my voice betrayed me. My breath hitched in my throat. My thoughts collided, scattering and reforming with impossible speed, each one a question I could not voice. Could I trust him? Could I forgive the betrayal? Could I allow myself to want him, in spite of everything? Every small gesture carried monumental weight. His hand near mine, paused, hesitant, almost imperceptible, was a battlefield of emotion. The brush of his coat against mine, the tilt of his head, the quiet tension in his voice, each movement was a provocation, a temptation, a challenge. And I was powerless to resist. Even standing there, in the cold, misted morning, on a pier that stretched into gray waters, I felt the gravity of our connection. The world was heavy, dangerous, and unyielding. Elena existed, shadows of rivalry and jealousy haunting every thought. Secrets, betrayals, danger, they all swirled around us, forming a maelstrom of tension that neither of us could deny. And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite the danger that clung to him like a second skin, I wanted him. The tension had built slowly, invisibly, and now it exploded in every glance, every movement, every heartbeat. And as we stood there, so close yet so far, the fog curling around us like a shroud, I realized that nothing could return to ordinary. Nothing could erase the spark, the desire, the fear, the longing that had consumed me, that had made the world vibrate with impossible energy. We broke apart after that. For days, I avoided him, forcing myself to breathe through the ache, through the longing that seemed to burn under my skin like a relentless fire I couldn't extinguish. Each morning, the sunlight spilling through my kitchen window felt cruel, highlighting the empty spaces where he should have been, the invisible weight of absence pressing against my chest. I kept myself busy, washing dishes, arranging pastries, cleaning counters, but every routine, every trivial task felt hollow without the electricity of his presence. I could feel Elena's eyes everywhere, though she didn't have to speak. Her smug little smile, the effortless way she carried herself, the way she lingered around him even when he wasn't there, it cut deeper than words ever could. She knew. She knew she had won a temporary victory, and she let that knowledge bleed into every interaction, into every shared glance she knew I would see. I hated it. I hated her. I hated myself for hating her. And yet, beneath all the anger and envy, there was a part of me that understood, she wasn't fighting for him the way I wanted to fight for him. She didn't lie awake at night wondering, waiting, aching. But love doesn't obey rules. It doesn't respect logic or timing. It doesn't heed reason or propriety. And no matter how much I tried to protect my heart, to lock away the longing and the desire, he found me. It was in the quiet hours, when the city slept and the fog pressed thick against the windows, curling into corners, muffling sounds, making the world feel intimate and suspended. I was perched on the edge of my bed, hands gripping the sheets, trying to slow my racing thoughts when I heard it, a quiet knock, tentative yet deliberate. My stomach twisted. My pulse leapt. I knew, without opening the door, who it was. "I can't keep doing this," he said, voice low, heavy with tension, carrying the weight of nights spent chasing the impossible. "I can't hide from you, not anymore." I swallowed hard, tears blurring my vision despite my effort to stay composed. "Then don't," I whispered, voice cracking, fragile yet resolute. "I can't either." For a moment, silence stretched between us, a taut thread of anticipation, dangerous and delicious. The air seemed to hum with every unspoken thought, every ache, every suppressed desire. And then, slowly, cautiously, we began to bridge the distance, tentative touches, fingertips grazing, long looks that lingered far too long to be innocent. Words were whispered in half-finished sentences, confessions spilling over edges of vulnerability neither of us had dared to expose fully before. Each step forward was fraught with peril, thrilling and terrifying, like walking along a cliff's edge with nothing but fog between us and the ground. I learned the taste of fear mixed with longing. It was addictive. The way his hand brushed mine made my chest ache. The way he caught my gaze, unflinching, made my knees weak. Every small moment, the curl of his lips, the tension in his shoulders, the warmth radiating from him when he leaned close, was a battlefield of emotions I had no strategy to navigate. I wanted to hate him, to resist him, to protect myself from the chaos he brought into my carefully ordered life. But I couldn't. Each encounter drew me in deeper, pulling me into a web of desire, fear, and love I couldn't escape. And Elena? She tried, for a while, to pull him back, to reclaim what she thought she owned. I saw the way she lingered, the subtle manipulations, the glances meant to remind him, and me, that she existed, that she was an obstacle I hadn't overcome. But she wasn't the one holding him awake at night. I was. And that realization struck me with the force of a revelation. Love wasn't about fairness. It wasn't about rules. It wasn't about victory or possession. Love, I understood then, was about willing to walk through fire with someone, knowing every risk, every danger, every shadowed corner of their world, and still choosing them, still holding their hand when the smoke cleared. The final night came slowly, creeping over the city like a quiet threat. Fog rolled along the streets, obscuring the lines between reality and dream. Street lamps glowed through the mist, casting halos that made the pavement shimmer with rain, reflecting the tension and uncertainty coiled in my chest. I waited, heart hammering, ears straining for the faintest sound of him. And then I saw him, soaked from the rain, coat clinging to him, water running in rivulets along the curve of his shoulders, eyes shadowed with danger, exhaustion, and something else, something I couldn't name until I was standing before him. I should have told you sooner, he said, voice raw, brittle with unspoken confessions and regret. I could hear the weight of the nights he had spent wrestling with his fears, the sleepless hours spent wondering if he was protecting me or pushing me away. I'm still here, I said, stepping closer despite the chill and the rain. My heart thumped violently in my chest, unsteady but defiant. I haven't left. He swallowed, eyes flickering with vulnerability that I had never seen before. I was afraid, he admitted, each word a confession, a crack in the carefully maintained armor he wore. Afraid of losing you, afraid of what I'd do if I let you in completely. You don't have to be afraid anymore, I whispered, my voice trembling, fragile and tentative, yet carrying the strength of everything I felt, everything I had endured. My fingers reached for his, threading through the tension, the fear, the longing, bridging the gap that had existed between us for far too long. And then I kissed him. Not carefully, not slowly, not measured. I kissed him like the world had collapsed around us, like every moment of longing, every ache, every heartbeat screaming in my chest needed release. I kissed him with fire and desire, with fear and defiance, with everything that had kept me awake in the quiet nights, pacing the bakery floors, imagining him, craving him, yearning for this moment. We didn't have answers. We didn't have safety. The streets were wet, empty, and shadowed, the city a labyrinth of potential threats and unseen eyes. But for the first time, I understood what love truly meant. It wasn't about guarantees. It wasn't about logic or predictability. Love was choosing someone despite the darkness, despite the danger, despite the unrelenting uncertainty. Love was acknowledging the storms, the secrets, the shadows, and still deciding that person, that heartbeat, that presence, was worth every risk. As dawn crept slowly over the horizon, painting the city in pale pinks and golds, he held me close. Rain dripped from our coats, water pooling around our feet, the hum of the city awakening faintly in the distance. He whispered my name, low, intimate, almost reverent, and the sound of it settled in me, a promise, a prayer, a warning all at once. I closed my eyes, surrendering to him fully, finally, letting the ache and longing dissolve into something tangible, something real, something dangerous but beautiful. Because sometimes, love isn't safe. It isn't gentle. It isn't predictable. Sometimes it's terrifying, consuming, all-encompassing. And sometimes, it's exactly what you need to survive. And in that moment, drenched in rain and fear and longing, I knew, with a certainty that shook me to the core, that I would follow him anywhere. Through alleys dark and silent, through storms and secrets, through danger and desire. I would follow him, not because it was safe, not because it was right, but because it was the only way I could breathe, the only way I could exist fully, the only way I could be alive.